Are you looking for something that's going to warm you to the bones on these chilly winter days? Well, this is my split-pea soup with ham. But you don't have to add the ham if you don't want to and you want to save some bites, points, or calories. I add the ham because we like a little extra. So if you do too, stick around because it's coming up next. Hello and welcome to my kitchen. My name is Roy. I am a home cook and amateur baker, and I am here on this channel sharing recipes that have helped me to lose over 125 pounds, whether those recipes are mine or someone else's. Today is one of mine. It is for a pea soup, and I am going to do it with ham. You do not have to do it with ham if you don't want to. That would definitely save you on some points, calories, bites, etc. But I am doing it with ham. I'm also throwing in an ingredient that is not in the recipe, but I would talk about that in a moment. Now this is definitely soup weather. We got like 8 inches of snow the other day. It was down in the teens overnight. Definitely soup weather. And this soup is comforting, not just because of that warm, cozy feeling, but also Paul's late uncle used to always, at Christmas dinner or any sort of dinner where there was a ham, he would always take the ham bone, take pieces of the ham and make pea soup with it and then give it out to the family. So it's just comforting all around. So let us go over the ingredients. I have here 1 pound of diced ham. It's in a very small dice, like under bite size. You know, when you get pea soup with a little bit of ham in it, you often have those little tiny pieces, so that's what you want to cut them down to. Here I have 1 pound of split peas, and now when you do split peas or any sort of bean, you always want to go through them to make sure there's no foreign matter like little twigs or sticks or little bits of stone or something that got through the machine, because you definitely don't want to be eating a nice creamy soup and then bite into a little chip of stone. So you definitely want to pick over these, make sure that you go through, check it for foreign matter. And then I put it in my colander here and I rinsed it clear because a lot of times there's a little dusty coating on them. So you want to get rid of that. And I used hot water to rinse this off, partly because I wanted it to start softening slightly, because a lot of recipes will have you soak them for 2 hours before you are going to make your soup. And you can do that if you'd like. I've never had any problems not doing that, so I'm not going to. But I did rinse them in hot water just so that heat would let a little bit of that moisture in. I also have my pan over here that I've sprayed with cooking spray. I have 8 cups of chicken broth, not low sodium. Because I'm using the ham, I definitely want a lower sodium chicken broth. If you don't have lower sodium chicken broth, what I would do is use 6 cups of the chicken broth and then 2 cups of water just to water down some of that saltiness. And if you're not using ham at all, you would probably be fine with just regular chicken broth if that's what you chose to use. I have 1 medium onion that was diced finely. Because I am going to blend this down, you don't want big chunks of onion, or at least I don't want big chunks of onion competing with the peas for the texture. So I make sure mine is finely diced, about the size of what the split pea is. I do the same thing with my carrots here. I have about 16 baby carrots that I cut in quarters and then did a fine dice on that as well. That was about 2.5 ounces worth if you want to weigh it, or you could just use 2 carrots. But you know how I feel about carrots, dicing them up. That odd shape just, it's too much work. I have a tablespoon of minced garlic. You could use regular garlic and mince it yourself. You would need 3 cloves. And I have 1 bay leaf here. Now the component that is not in the recipe is I have a leftover ham bone here. We had a ham dinner on New Year's Day, so we cooked that up and I saved the bones so I could make soup. It might alter the bites slightly or the calories slightly because some of the fats in the bone will seep out into the soup. None of the meat is really going to fall off. It's not that tender of a cut of pork. So I don't think pieces are going to fall off. So I'm not worried about counting it, but this is not part of the recipe. You don't have to do this piece. I'm just adding that in. And if you did have a ham bone that you wanted to throw in, you can count the points or not, try to figure it out. But since I'm removing it, I'm never quite sure how that works. What do you count? What do you not count when you're taking the thing out? So anyway, I have my pan steaming over here, ready to work. So let me shuffle a few things around and we will get started. Our pan is heated on medium heat because you want to sweat the vegetables. And what that means is, like typically if you've watched this channel, you know I tend to do a high heat or medium high heat. And you want to do a slow cook on these. I'm adding in the onions, garlic, and the carrots over medium heat. And what sweating does is basically just, if you can hear me over the sizzle, is basically just slowly release the liquid from the vegetables. Hello, is anyone out there? And I'm going to cover this. That's part of the plan, not just because the steam was getting in my way. What you want to do is cover this. We're going to cook this for about 8 to 10 minutes and just stir them around occasionally. But as I was saying, sweating vegetables means you're cooking them at a lower heat, letting them slowly cook and release their moisture, kind of like making them sweat, hence sweating. Because we're not really looking for them to get color. We want them for the soup. We want them nice and soft. So that's why we're slowly cooking them over a medium heat and also covering it because that'll hold that steam in there and help them to cook a little faster. So 8 to 10 minutes, stirring occasionally, and I will be right back. All right, so it has been about 8 minutes because the dice on my veggies is so small. I decided 8 minutes is good, and you can see, hopefully through the steam, they're nicely softened. The onions are translucent. So now we are going to add in our peas. And I had them sitting over that bowl just because in case there was any more drainage. And now apparently they've become a brick, so I have to break them up a little bit. So we're going to add in our chicken broth. As I said, 8 cups, and it'll be in the recipe if you don't have the low sodium, or if you're not going to use the ham. I'll leave that information in the recipe so you don't have to worry about trying to remember all the details. I do try to put as much information in the recipes for alternatives as I can. Doesn't always work out, but I try. Okay, so we have that in. Now I'm going to stir to break up those clumps of peas as much as I can because if they're clumped together, they're going to have a hard time cooking in the middle there, middle of that pea ball, I guess. And I'm going to add in our bay leaf. Now you want to make sure whenever you cook with a bay leaf that you do remove it before you serve it because you do not want to eat a bay leaf. So just be cautious and take it out. It's not a big deal cooking with it, don't worry about it, but just remember to take it out. So now I'm going to turn the heat up to high because I want to bring this to a boil. Once it comes to a boil, we're going to turn it down to medium-low, and we're going to let it cook for an hour. And I'm going to do that partially covered so that some of the moisture can evaporate, but not too much, so that the peas will still be able to cook through in the liquid. Now, as it's coming to boil, you might want to stir just so that that high heat isn't sitting on those veggies at the bottom, and just those, you want to stir them around and let them each have a turn in the sauna, if you know what I mean. Okay, so as it's coming up to a boil, I'm going to add in my ham bone. And as I said, that's going to be removed. It's just there to kind of like leach out some flavor into the soup, give us a little more of a ham flavor. You could even just do this with the ham bone and not add the ham later. That's your call. Now you want to make sure it comes up to a true boil to make sure it's hot enough. And what I mean by a true boil is that it's boiling, and when you stir it, the boiling doesn't stop. If the boiling stops, that's not a true boil. That means it's hot, and it's hot enough to boil, but a true boil won't diminish as you stir it, or at least not too much. It'll still be going. Okay, let's see. Yeah, see, this is, I stir it, but it's still bubbling. So that means we are at a true boil. So I'm going to partially cover it. And so instead of putting it directly over like I did with the veggies, I'm going to tilt it so there is a little steam that can vent out on the sides, but it's not all going to keep venting out. It's just going to be like a little bit. I'm turning this down to medium-low, and we're going to let this cook for 1 hour. We're going to come back and stir occasionally just so that the beans and veggies that are sitting on the bottom aren't going to sit on the bottom for too long at a stretch. We're also going to flip the ham bone around a little bit just so that the same spot isn't sitting on the bottom, and we can get some flavor from the whole thing. So this is going to go for 1 hour, and then I'll be back. Okay, so it has been an hour, and I tasted some of the peas, and they are at the right texture for me. If you prefer them softer, you can let them cook a little bit longer. That's totally up to you. Some people prefer a much smoother texture on their pea soup. I like a little bit of texture. Like I always say, you do what you need to do. This is your weight loss journey. You do what's going to work for you. Take out the bay leaf, and we're going to take out this ham bone, if I can get it. This would not be the good time to have a spasm. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to set this over here out of my way. So what we're going to do now is puree this soup. I don't puree the entire thing. I like some of those pieces of pea still in there. If you prefer it smoother, like I said, you just blend it more. Now I'm going to use an immersion blender, which I did not plug in for some reason. So give me a second. If you've been around this channel at all, my not plugging this in didn't surprise you in the least. I'm usually forgetting something, so I'm just going to move on, just like I always do. All right, so I'm using an immersion blender. I'm only going to blend about half of the peas, as I said. You could, and actually, let me get the other blender. All right, so I also forgot to get the regular blender because I did want to show you something very important. I did show this in another video, and I don't recall which one it was. Anyway, when you are pureeing hot things, if you're not using an immersion blender, which I'm going to do, and you have only a regular blender, you want to fill it only about halfway. But the most important thing is this, what they call a fill cap, or sometimes it's a vent cap. You want to take this off. And what you want to do is forget the towel that you need to do this. Once again, be right back. Okay, if I didn't have my head attached, there'd be problems. Okay, so what you want to do is, as I said, take the fill cap or vent cap out, and that way you have a hole in your lid. You would push this down tightly to make sure that it's sealed, but you want to cover the hole so nothing splashes out. You don't want to cover it too tightly though. So I will take a tea towel and I'll just fold it in half and then half again so it's about the right size. Put it over the top and just loosely put my hand on top to keep it in place because you want the steam to vent out of there. If you did not allow the steam to vent out, the pressure with the blending would build and this lid could go flying off and splatter hot soup all over the place. You don't want that. So don't stress about it. It's not going to happen unless you leave this in. And even then, it may not happen, but why chance it? Just cover this loosely, blend it up, and you're going to be fine. Now, you could do half of the soup, like I'm going to do, or you could do all of the soup. What I would do is blend part of it. Rather than adding it back in, I would put it into a separate bowl, then blend more, and then bring it all together. But anyways, that's if you're using a regular blender. Let me put my fill cap back on. It's called a fill cap, in case you're curious. Like if you were making a pesto, you needed to put some oil in with the basil and pine nuts and stuff, you could slowly drizzle or fill the blender from here. It's also called a vent cup because it's also a vent for hot liquids. So there you have your lesson on blenders. And put that back on, move this out of my way. And now I'm going to start pureeing this. I'm going to turn down the volume so that you can not be overwhelmed with this buzzing noise. I will show you the consistency that I get to. Like right now you can see it's kind of brownish looking. It doesn't look like a pea soup. But as I blend it, you'll see what happens. Okay, so that's blended, I believe, to my satisfaction. Let me move this back over here so I can rest this messy thing. Sorry about that big clank. Let's see. Yep, that looks good, nice and smooth. Now this is going to sit here for another few minutes because we're going to add in the ham. If you're not using ham, this is essentially done, but I would let it still sit here for the next 10 minutes to let the soup thicken up a little bit more. But I am adding the ham, so this is when you would add it in. You didn't want to add it in before you blended it because you didn't want to have ham blended in here. You want those little chunks of ham. So what I'm going to do is let this sit here for 10 minutes, cook a little bit more, let that ham heat up, and I'll be right back to finish this up. Okay, so it has been 10 minutes. I'm going to add in some pepper. I did taste for seasoning. Does not need any salt, but we do like pepper around here. So I'm going to go a little heavy with the pepper, but use pepper to your taste and salt if you need it. You shouldn't need it, especially if you use the ham, but you never know. And there you have it, my split pea with ham soup. It's really delicious, very comforting on these cold days. Now, I'm assuming you want to know all about the bites and calories and macros and points. So let me get into that. So this makes 6 to 8 servings, about 3 quarts of soup. But if you did not want to use the ham, this would be 0 bites, 0 old blue points. I don't know what it would be on your personal points. I guess it would depend on if you have peas as a 0 bite food. The only bites or points are coming from the ham, so it would be 0 if you did not use the ham. If you did use the ham and you did this as 6 servings or 8 servings, it would be 2 bites or 2 of the old blue points. Now I used a spiral ham that we had left over. You could use ham steak, you could use Canadian bacon, you could use what you like. I wouldn't probably do like a pork chop or something, but you want something on the ham side of things. So for 6 or 8 servings, this is going to be 2 of the Better Balanced bites. Again, I keep forgetting to mention, I'm on the Healthi, formerly iTrackBites Better Balance plan, which is the equivalent to the old WW Blue plan. So those are the bites or points that I'm giving, and you will have to adjust based on what plan you are on. Now, for 6 servings of this, the calories for 1 serving would be 370. And if you're following macros, the fat would be 9.8 grams, the carbs would be 47.6 grams, and the protein would be 32.1 grams. And that's for 6 servings, which is probably about almost 2 cups. Now, if you're doing it as 8 servings, which would be about 1 1/3 cups to 1 1/2 cups, the calories would drop to 278. And if you're following macros, the fat would go down to 7.3 grams, the carbs would be 35.7 grams, and the protein would be an even 24 grams. And again, that's for 1/8 or about 1 1/3 cup to 1 1/2 cups. But definitely a keeper for those nice, cool winter nights that we are having here, or even an afternoon. So I hope that you enjoyed this video and will try this recipe. And if you did, please give me a thumbs up. I would really appreciate that. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet and you are looking for recipes that can help you on a weight loss journey. And share these videos if you know of someone who's on a weight loss journey who might benefit from these recipes. Hit the notification bell for the next time I upload any sort of video, and comment down below if pea soup is your kind of thing, if you would use the ham or if you wouldn't. Inquiring minds want to know. So you can find the recipe for this soup and all of my recipes on my blog, and the link for that is down in the description box, along with a number of other links like my Fetch rewards, my Built bars, my Amazon storefront, and my social media. So if you'd like to, you can follow me over there. Here is my Instagram handle, and there are 2 Facebook groups that I am part of. One is mine, Recipes with Roy, and the other one is Finding Our Way, WEIGH. And that one, I co-admin with the lovely Jennifer Lynn from the Jennifer Lynn channel, and the equally lovely Bree Coleman from Balancing Life with Bree. So join us over there. There's lots of great tips, tricks, recipes, support, and people. So it's about 10 o'clock at night, so I'm not going to have any soup yet. But tomorrow for lunch, this is what we will be having. And I know we're both looking forward to it. So until next time, bye.